to talk about AI. You might notice I might sound to have like a little frog in my throat. Sorry about that, y'all. I'm getting over some allergies, but we're going to push through. And luckily, Josh is the expert today. I'm just going to be listening and picking my jaw up off the floor when he wows us with all he knows about AI. The purpose of this call today is, I met him and he asked if it would be helpful if he could show off some examples of just how he thinks about using AI. He says he sees questions all the time from bookkeepers and about running their business and serving clients, and his mind immediately goes to, oh, this is how I would use AI to help me solve that. But maybe my nature and maybe your nature is not going straight to AI for that. So I said, yes, come show us, come teach us, a wise one. Because I want my mind to work like that. I want to know when is a good time to insert these tools into our processes. So he's going to come demonstrate how his mind works. We collected a lot of questions from the group, so we're going to start with that. But if you have any questions in real time, we can test them. We can see how good he is on his feet, unprepared, and just like say, here. So ask your questions as you're listening, and he's answering some. You'll be like, oh, I got one. Let's see. And so I'll be fielding those in the comments. We're pretty much going to dive right in. If y'all want to chime in, those of you who are listening live, let us know where you're watching from. And then I think I'm just going to say, Josh, just give us the little 30-second bio of yourself. We're kicking it over to you now. Who are you? And then we'll get into the demo.
Yeah, absolutely. So nice to meet you guys. My name is Josh. I'm the founder of Legix, and what we basically do is AI bookkeeping workflows for accounting firms exclusively. So just kind of dive in, so the biggest thing I see about AI and, what people are using it for is if everyone has all these questions and, if you look at all these webinars or these, workshops out there, everyone has these really nice case studies, right? But the biggest thing you want to take away from this call is basically how to use AI and think about it. So I'm going to basically wing it and essentially give you an idea of all the mistakes or all the things that may not work about it and how I work through those problems if I were just sitting down in a session and just kind of really engaging with some of these tools. So like I said, feel free to chime in with any questions on that end.
All right, shall I share your screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, here we go. Adding that to the stage. All right, what are we looking at?
So this is ChatGPT's interface, and this is usually the first thing that you kind of land on here. So, but before I forget, so the two things I want you to take away, because every accountant and bookkeeper is always wondering about this. If you don't know already, ChatGPT on the team version, especially, and on the personal version too, you can basically have it so it doesn't train on your data. I know that's a concern for some people. So if you go to the settings page here, right, and then you go to the personalization, right, I believe it is security. Right, and then speech, personalization, notifications, general, right? So customization is on, right? So this is reference the save memories, right? Reference chat history. This is still fine, but you want to make sure that the settings are in here that you make sure that it doesn't train on here. So let me see where to find it. So should be data controls, right? So go to data controls, improve model for everyone, and just turn that off. So as long as you turn this off, and you can read more about their privacy statement and that kind of stuff, right? It won't train on any sensitive information you have in here. So that's something just to keep in mind for everyone. If you are doing that, it won't affect your experience. This is just default on for everyone because most people don't know about this. So I would do that, and this is where I would start. So once you're in this page, the second thing I want to start introducing you guys to is like everyone who lands on this page doesn't really know about this button up here, right? So OpenAI actually has multiple different models going at multiple different times. Most people, when they land in here, they always use something called 4.0. And this is like the general purpose model that has the images, that has the web search, right? But each one of these is for different tasks, right? It has a different personality, different quirks, different things it's good and bad at. So I wouldn't always use 4.0, for example, for all my tasks. It just depends on my workflow. So we'll go into each one of these on that end. If you have any questions so far, let me know. But otherwise, I will jump into some of the stuff. So off the bat, I was reading your guys' comments. Great comments, by the way.
Yes.
And then also this post. So what I did was I was like, I don't have time to read all this stuff. So what I did was I just copied everything into 4.0 mini, right? And ask it to, hey, let's group these into topics, right? And on this note, the reason why I use 04 mini is because it's a reasoning model. So a reasoning model basically means that it's basically taking a lot more time to think through information and context. So O4 money you want to use for when you're just trying to dump a bunch of stuff in here. You don't want to organize it. You really don't care to. There's just too much stuff in here. This reasoning model and this reasoning model are pretty good at this work, right? So what it did was it grouped together all this different stuff, right? So it looks like some people were having challenges with Monday bottlenecks, hiring and team building, work-life balance, right? Some marketing challenges, pricing building, pricing struggles, proposal offerings, all that kind of stuff on that end. So I think so I'm thinking out loud here, right? I think pricing might be a really good one to start with, right?
Great.
Right. So it's like, oh, how do I do pricing for my accounting firm, right? Like, where do I even start with this, right? So that's a great question, which you should ask ChatGPT about, right? So we'll start here. So,
and you just switched to 4.0.
4.0, yes, yes, exactly. The reason I switched to 4.0 is because 4.0 is a really good like daily driver. So imagine 4.0 as your like little companion that is just your buddy, and you can just ask it all kinds of questions, do all kinds of stuff for you, right? So I'll start with a couple questions like, okay, how do I, develop pricing for my accounting firm, right? So we'll just start there. Like any question you could possibly have, I would actually ask ChatGPT first before you ask any expert or guru, because what ChatGPT does, it allows you to synthesize the questions better, right? So we'll start here, right? Oh, actually pops up here. So sometimes you'll see this. This is basically you telling it how you like things done. So which one do I like more? I think I like this one. Yeah, let's do this one. This one's good. Yep. I prefer this response. Okay, so let's go here. So we'll read through this. I'll just scan it real quick. Okay, define a service scope. Great. Choose pricing model. Awesome. Segment clients and estimate your cost, right? All that kind of stuff, right? Yeah, so all these are different things. So I would read through this. So and start from here. So then we can start saying like, okay, well, I'm based in Arizona. Are you able to help me research my market here? Right? So now what this is doing is like, hey, like maybe I had an idea of like, oh, maybe I'm more geographically focused. So like, let's have it go research the different rates here. It's like, okay, 130 to 170 per hour in Phoenix, specialized CPA services, personal returns, business returns, accounting services, monthly bookkeeping rates. Great. So now that I have this information,
did it just bring up examples of actual Arizona businesses?
Yep, exactly.
Toel?
Exactly. Yep, all the stuff. And you can go into here, look, and you can look at this, this one, right? All these are cited on that end. So it's like you have price. Oh, look at this. Wow, look at this is great information. Awesome. Oh, there's more pricing models. Fantastic. All right. Now I can double check it. And I'm thinking through this. I'm like, okay, it's pretty good. All this information is pretty much in the right direction, right? And then maybe I'll say like, okay, great. If I wanted to price competitively, right? Do you see any gaps or positioning I could do? Boom, right? So it's like, okay, most firms are either low effort hourly providers or high for tax focused generalists. I can stand out with the right combination of work design here. It's like, and then it starts giving me ideas, right? Boom, 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 boom. Here, hybrid advisory, all kinds of good stuff, right? I mean, it's a lot to take in, but I don't worry about trying to like, figure out necessarily which one to start with first, because so now what I'm going to do is now that I have a bunch of context, right? It's like, oh, look at all this information. We search a bunch of different stuff, right? Now what I'll do is I'll actually switch over to like O3, right? So and here's the reason why I switch over is O3 is like a very, very high level, PhD student nerd. It will give you, it's super, super smart, but if it doesn't have enough context, it will start going down multiple different rabbit holes very quickly. So 4.0, as you use to basically get the context and get all the things you want it to consider. And then O3 can actually help you synthesize everything for your business, right? So let's say, okay, great. This is amazing information, right? Help me create a comprehensive test plan for the next 12 months and and experimentation. And you don't have to type the stuff like super clearly either. That's another thing with AI these days. You can just be grammatically incorrect. You can just type random words and it will still pretty much get your intent. So I wouldn't worry about thinking about too much in here on that end. So experimentation for my business. Ask me any clarifying questions that you need.
And we're staying in the same chat, but you just changed the model at the top. I was expecting it to jump. Like I thought you were gonna have to like copy everything and give it to O3, but okay.
It is improving very rapidly. So it used to be like that, but recently, I think about 2 weeks ago, they changed that. So definitely keep up. Yeah, keep up with the thing, and you start seeing like multiple different improvements coming here.
Triple D Music is asking, it looks like the free version does not give the multiple options for chat. Do you know if that's true? Is it only because you're paying that you got that 2 columns?
No, so the free version does give you some limited options, but I would highly recommend, because a lot of the free version and the paid version, the capabilities are so far from each other that I would highly recommend just trying out the paid version for like a month. But give it enough time to use it. Yeah, but you are correct, like in the sense that the free version has limited capacity on that.
So I'm paying $20 a month. Is that the plan you're paying for?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you were maybe using some super juiced plan. Okay.
There is the super juice plan, but most people won't ever use that much of it because they keep increasing the capabilities and the limits you have.
Okay.
Yeah. So
all right. So where are we? We asked the nerd now how to do its nerd thing. It does look pretty different.
Yep. So this is basically, it's like, hey, I need a quick snapshot of my current situation and goals, just a bullet two on. So it's basically asking me clarifying questions now, right? It's like, oh, what are these things, right? It's guiding me through those. So I obviously don't run a firm, so I can't answer all of these. So what I'll do is I'll say, hey, just answer them all for me and simulate business. Right. So like, great. So we can do that instead, right? Because I don't want to spend all of my time answering this because I don't know, right? Maybe you guys have better questions to each of these ones. But so what I'll do is like, I'll say, hey, just simulate one for me. And then we'll kind of go from these, use it as an example, right? So I was thinking here, let me close these tabs up here, clean it up. Okay. And then one cool thing, if you're ever curious, so when I said reasoning model, so these are the reasoning models. If you actually want to go in here, so it actually shows you sometimes like, how is it going about, how is it thinking about the problem it's going for? So if you're ever curious as to like the direction it's going, right? This is how you can kind of look at that on that. So he's like, great, okay, here's a simulated one, baseline snapshot. So this stuff might fit some of you guys, it may not, but you can always change these. But it's like, okay, great, here's the experiment framework, Q2, execution plan. Boom, clean up HubSpot stages, set up KPI dashboards, if I'm using HubSpot, right? Actually metrics, right? Great, restaurant focused landing page. And then it just goes through each individual one and starts planning it out for you, right? And again, now that I have this plan, maybe I want to switch back to 4.0 and start researching more stuff. It's like, actually, let's change this to hair salon industry, right? Because
I want to be the best bookkeeper for hair salons.
Yeah, I'm trying to dominate all the hair in Phoenix, right?
We both probably are known for our hair, Josh.
Yeah, exactly right. Oh, and also one cool thing. So I'll have to delete this because this doesn't affect. But Josh is now focused on the more and more you use ChatGPT, the more it will save its memory and personalize it for you, right? So this has Josh is now focused on dominating the hair salon, Phoenix industry. Obviously, I'm gonna delete this one because this one isn't. I wouldn't worry about that right now. But anyway, okay, great. Updated strategic positioning hair salons, right? Most hair, finance, that kind of stuff, right? Yeah, and then updated that fit, right? Updated the different things in here, right? So this is the first step. Like I said, is like any question you possibly have that you could think about. So for example, all these questions that you guys posted is like, hey, I'm gonna say pricing, right? All this different stuff. So watch this, right? I can do the exact same thing. I'm gonna copy this over. And I'm just gonna, again, do the same thing, right? Oh, let's start with 4.0. We'll copy this question and we'll make a new chat.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, you don't want to put it in the old hair salon chat.
Correct.
It'll be confused. Okay.
Correct. So you open a new one, and I'm just like, each one of these is basically, all these are questions you can just start with ChatGPT with, right? So I'll just post this and see what it says, right?
I'll read it. She says, I'm going to say pricing was her question. A relatively recent solo firmer is still guessing game for me. Like if I wanted to sell clothes, I would go to several stores, figure out price ranges, and decide how much I can charge. With bookkeeping, it's been a challenge figuring out the going rates in order to set up my own pricing. I was completely in the dark in the beginning. At this point, based on various discussions and podcasts, I've seen rates anywhere from 25 to 600 per hour. That's what we started with, y'all.
Yep. So it sounds like, okay, great. It's organizing information. And then it can say, hey, pricing benchmarks US based. It's like, oh, this is great. This is very useful, right? And then it's like, oh, suggested experimentation. See, so it remembered, if you can notice this, it remembered what I was just chatting about in this previous chat. And it, it sprinkled in a little context. Hey, here's an experimentation plan for you, right? So it starts going here, great, testing prospects, right? Layering premium options, right? All that stuff, right? And then another part of that conversation on pricing, just kind of we double down on it, is like, how do you actually determine the price, right? So then I can ask you, like, how do you determine pricing? Are there different strategies out there?
So it's coming back with a column on the left called strategy, and it says hourly building, fixed fee / monthly retainers, value-based pricing, tiered packages, per unit pricing, and hybrid (custom plus flat). So combined hourly and project-based. So It gave us a nice little table to answer that question. All right. Yeah.
And then, so for example, like I know, for example, value-based pricing is what every guru is like, oh, you got to do value-based pricing, price what you're worth, that kind of stuff, right? But what they don't talk about is like, okay, how do you actually do value-based pricing, right?
Oh yeah, so, I know. I'm aware.
So therefore, you can again, let's double click on value-based pricing. How do I determine that? Determine that over time for my firm.
I'm trying to, as it answers, I'm trying to think about how like experienced business owners versus new business owners, like we're going to be asking different questions. Like, how do I want to ask, like, how do I increase my price? I'm kind of like entrenched in pricing right now. I'm 7 years in. I would like to make more. Maybe that's a different flavor. Someone who's more seasoned versus a beginning bookkeeping entrepreneur might say, hey, give me the quick boot camp, the college level 101 class about how bookkeepers set up pricing. So change it to where you are in your business, I guess is my point.
Yep, exactly.
He's writing, how do I systematically increase my price? How do I measure the price sensitivity of my current and potential future clients? So this is him helping me right now. My pricing strategy has just been to price each new client more than the one before, which I don't know if that's a good strategy or not, but I don't know.
It could be. It could be. And that's what I'm saying is like one of those things is like you should ask that to this.
Okay.
Chat,
yeah.
Right. It's ChatGPT is AI is this big monolithic. People are like, oh, AI this, but like when you really at the end of the day is like the hardest part about using AI is just realizing that every possible question you have in your head, right? You can use ChatGPT as an actually helpful internal monologue for yourself.
Okay.
And it's not to say that it will get it right every time, but it will get you like 80-90% of the way there. And you'll have to, sit down with this and actually think through these different things, right? But that thinking process, that synthesizing process can be done with ChatGPT as a great helper in the background, right? So it's like, okay, great. You have option B. You like it starts going into stuff that I know about from my business, right? But for example, like the vendor door price sensitivity survey. This one's a very common one we use in software. But like, for example, it's like, and this is really good. I was hoping to actually I didn't want to prompt it, but it did answer it, right? So this is a very specific type of survey question that you can send to segments, right? It's like ask clients or prospects, right? What do you think is too expensive, getting expensive, good value, too cheap, right? And then based on 10, 15 response, you can see that range and you can find that price point, right? But then it's like, but it gives you options, right? There's parts 2, there's like step 1, right? And then there's like bonus experimentation loop, right? So you can do these different things, right? So this essentially answers that first question in
Great.
detail.
Yeah.
Right? And you can do this, like I think another one had hiring, right? This one's an interesting one, right? It's like, okay, how do I do this one? So again, I could just copy this, go into here, right? Oh, and actually another thing, let me just make sure I'm on the pricing thing real quick. So we just were using only 4.0, right? So there are actually other things you can use in here. So like I say, if I wanted to go to 03, right? I mean, great. Now review this and add in anything I should be considering. So I went to 03 now, since it has a lot of context, right? And now I'll have this PhD start doing some work for me, right?
While it's thinking, how do you keep up with all this, man? Like, so I pay for ChatGPT. First I tried it and I use it. I have it opened. I used it yesterday, but like, I didn't know. This is me. I'm admitting, everybody. Okay. Like, I'm not the dullest tool in the shed either. I didn't know that I should be toggling between, you said something changed 2 weeks ago. Like,
yeah.
shoot me, like what? Let's just go dig a ditch or something. Sometimes this makes me feel this way. So how are we
keeping up with it, basically?
Yeah.
So because I'm building in the space, it kind of just trickles in with me, right? However, if I wasn't building in the space, this is how I would keep up with it, actually. So I'll actually open up another ChatGPT here, right? And I'll go to something called, let's see, I think it was, I'll go to something called tasks, right? So this here, you can basically assign tasks to ChatGPT, right? So for example, I can say every day, I want you to go and research the latest AI tools that's relevant for accounting, or any major improvements to ChatGPT every day at let's say 8 a.m. Let's do that.
Okay.
Right. So what it will do there, it'll basically create a task in here, right? And this task is, it'll do it every day, right? So in this case, because we're a startup, right, and I'm tracking which investment funds are raising money. I have this task that runs at 9 a.m. every day that just researches, what's the latest fund that's been raised, who raised money in last day, right? So this is a way for you to have these daily tasks going in the background, right?
Nice. Okay.
To keep up with whatever you want to keep up with, right? So if I were you, that's how I would keep up with it. So you don't have to worry about where to find the rate. Just have ChatGPT do the research for you and just give it to you in a little digest every morning, for example.
Perfect. Right? Okay.
So anyway,
we're talking about HR, I think, or no, hiring.
Yes. So for example, the hiring. So you can do the same thing, right? You put it in, and you open up a new chat. Let's post this in, right? And then we start chatting, on that end, right? And it starts going down the same sort of process here. So I actually will stop here because I know we have a little bit of time on that end, but I wanted to move on to something else. But you can guys kind of see this. So the same thing as the other one for pricing is, like, you can start here, and any question you have, literally anything that pops into your mind, just type it in and see what ChatGPT comes out with, and just start working with it and treat it as your private researcher for anything you want, like literally anything you want on the internet. You can go find it for you, help you think through it, that kind of stuff, right?
Okay.
So that being said, there was one more question about segmentation, which is an interesting one, right? That's a challenging one if you don't necessarily know where to start with. I'm going to actually show you, I use ChatGPT a lot, but I actually use something called Claude for some of the stuff, especially when I'm trying to get a lot of information about the accounting industry. So I'll switch over to Claude real quick.
Okay.
So Claude, similar interface, you can do similar stuff in ChatGPT, but the most useful thing about Claude, in my opinion, is their projects element. So in projects, I have all this different projects in here. You can think of projects as sort of like little mini workspaces with a bunch of different already trained contexts. Like you've already had a lot of chats with it. It already knows what type of topics you want to talk about, right? So I have one called, let's see, Legix, I think it's Legix Business. Yeah, Legix Business, right? And in this one, I essentially have almost every single major accounting industry report that has come out, in the last like 3 years. So I have the global advisory report, I have the CAS benchmark report, I have, the CAS 2024 CAS benchmark survey, the 2024 management accounting practices, right? I have like small business metrics, accounting metrics, right? So this is like every metric, in here, right? And then I think where's the KPI one? There's a KPI somewhere in here. Yeah, here we go, for like firm KPIs, right? So these are every single metric that's related to a firm. And this is actually how I use to quickly understand like accounting businesses, like very, very quickly, right? So let's say I wanted to figure out like, hey, so that being said, like I have all this information in here, right? I want to turn on the extended rethinking. So it's just Claude's version of the reasoning. It's like O3, right?
Okay.
It's like, tell me about the trends in the accounting industry, right?
So while it's thinking, if we are looking, because we're not working, we don't want to serve accountants, we want to serve clients. We would probably ask the AI to find us the reports, right?
Yep.
So ask them to find those reports.
Exactly.
Add them to a project. And so people who want to work in construction there's probably construction lobbying groups that come out with reports like that. And so now that's how we would use this. You're using it as a software builder targeting accountants, but what does it say here? So it's still thinking, it looks like.
Yeah, so it's going through this, so that the thinking is going through so much different documents. So while that's working, I'll actually use that as an example, what you just said. So what are the trade organizations?
For construction.
For construction, right? Construction. Are there any industry reports they release? So for this one, because I'm actually having it go and like, I want it to dig, right? I don't want it to just start answering questions, because it's saying, hey, I want you to go and browse like every single trade organization website. I want you to go and deep in their website and find me these reports, right? I would actually switch over to a reasoning model, because there's multiple turns that I can do. So I'll actually let's go to Mini and see how that one does, right?
This is the first time you're showing us Mini, right?
Yes, Mini is just a little faster. Just a little faster than Mini High. So that's why I'm like, okay, but it's the first sort of reasoning model that I can use on that end. I don't want to use O3 because it'll just start giving me all kinds of opinions and think through. I'm like, I don't need that right now. I just need you to find me a list of stuff, right? So I'll go here and I'll go here, like what released every year, and it's thinking, right? So as it's thinking, let's see what Claude came up with. It's like, oh, great. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Is Claude a paid tool?
Claude is paid, yes. All these capabilities you won't get unless you start paying for it, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, okay, great. Adoption, financial performance, growth, fantastic. So, and then I can ask it like, okay, median billing rates from 37 to 159. So this is how I start learning about, the accounting industry. So let's see what we got here. Great. Here's a rundown of major U.S. accounting trade organizations. Oh, look at that. So you got the links to them, different reports, ADC report, surveys, all that kind of stuff, right? PDFs. Great. So then what I would do is actually I would take all these reports, I would pop them into a Claude project, right? So a new project, right? And then I would then start asking questions about it, right? On that end. So this allows you to kind of like get a very large idea about it. So let's just say it has all this information now, and then I can just use O3 just to kind of get started here, since this already has the context. I can say, hey, great. I'm trying to sell accounting services to this industry. What are the segments I can start with? Pros and cons of each. Right. So it goes through and it basically, again, it just reads through everything. It's just such an impressive tool. It's crazy. It will read through every single one of these things in a few seconds, reason through it, and just start, giving you different pieces of information that you can work with on that end. Right. So it's like, look at this. It's evaluating so many different things. The key with all this stuff is to not to get overwhelmed, because look, if you can tell, like there's a lot of stuff going on in here, right? What I would start getting used to is just, think about it as like all you're doing is trying to get 80% of the information. You're not necessarily worried too much about like the verifiability. You want to verify all this once you think you have a game plan together for your business, for your situation, for sure. But just right now, this is just researching and you just getting a lot of context of like and answering all the questions you have. And so you know how to adapt to it, right? So that's, okay, here's a roadmap of construction-related niches independent boutique accounting firms typically target first, right? Ease of it, or I didn't even ask you to do this, but it ordered by ease of entry, right? And then lifetime value, which is very interesting, right? So it starts like, say, trade organizations, general contractors, resident builder remodelers, heavy civil, that kind of stuff, right?
So let me tell you what I'm thinking right now. I'm thinking, Josh, I'm smarter now. I know more because I asked it these questions. I did not know that what the lifetime value of the first niche was versus the second niche. Like, I get that. But at no point, I haven't done any work yet, right? Like, I still got to get that proposal out the door, or I still got to make that hire, or post that job onto LinkedIn. Like that girl, Andrea, was asking about hiring as a solopreneur. She's wanting to grow. Like, I can talk for days to the robot about, I'm nervous about hiring. How am I going to get the job posted on LinkedIn? Is AI going to like help me with that? Like, is there like a too long didn't read version of all this? Because also this kind of looks like procrastination a little bit. Like, I'm going to read all of it, but I haven't moved my ball forward except just smarter.
Yep. Yeah. So obviously, once you have this information, you still have to have an idea of like, what you're going to do with it, right?
Right.
So let's say I wanted to go. Let's go back to the hair salon one, right? Which was, I believe, it should be around here somewhere. I think it was this one. Yeah, this is the hair salon one. Okay, so let's go back to here, and we'll go back to 4.0, right? So let's say I'm great. This is awesome, right? I need to scale a bit, before I start dominating hair in Phoenix. Who do you think I should hire first? Right, so now it's like, okay, great. Junior bookkeeper, right? Admin ops assistant, 10 to 15-hour weeks. And it starts giving me all this pricing stuff, right? And then as it's kind of going here, I'll say, great. I can start writing this as it's kind of going down. For that junior bookkeeper, draft me up a job description I can post on LinkedIn.
Okay. I was thinking of a sentence like, thank you. Now tell me what I need to do in less than 100 words. Tell me what I need to do next in less than 100 words. Because that's what I'm feeling as like, I'm like, okay, so much. What's the one thing I need to do next, and tell it to me short. I don't know if that's a good question to ask it or not. You basically, you knew what to ask it. You're like, what do I need to, give me the job description. I might not even know that's what I need to do next. Maybe I think I have to get like hiring SOPs in place first. I don't know. So is that a good question to ask? Like, what should I do next?
Yeah. So that one is actually, I can't answer it for you, mainly because that's relevant to your business, right?
Okay.
On that end, you can use O3, like I was shown earlier, to kind of give you like a timeline or an execution plan. But This is where the human still has to stay in the loop, right? As you can see, this can do a bunch of stuff for you. It can do research, it can help you plan out stuff, it can do X, Y, Z. But the final decision of like, what's the next action item, that is all on you to decide what's best for your business, right? And this is where, once you have all this information, it's at this point where you reach out to like a coach, a guru, a friend, and say, hey, this is what I learned. This is what I know about all the problems. This is what I'm facing. This is the context I have. And these are like plan A, plan B, and plan C. Based on what you know about my business and your experience, what do you think you should do? And that at that point, you can actually then have a very tactical discussion. Because what happens with you look at all these gurus and all these frameworks and all these webinars is everyone's talking about frameworks. Everyone's talking about approaches, right? Of like, oh, pricing plans or models or templates or whatever, right? But they don't talk about tactics, right?
Yeah.
And you can use ChatGPT to get all those frameworks and all those templates and all those plans. So you don't need to learn about those things. But then once you have all these frameworks and you start really understanding, okay, what it's talking about, because you've already chatted with a few times, you can then hit up me or Kate or someone else and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. tactically, what do you think the first step should be based on what I know? And what happens is whatever they answer, you yourself will feel like you can either say, yeah, that makes sense because I know, or that doesn't make sense because of this framework I learned recently through ChatGPT, right? So the next action item at this point is to now say like, okay, like how do I have to make a decision? And do I know enough to make a decision, and who can I rely on? And tactically, no longer framework driven.
Yeah, like I'm thinking that's what like our community is for too. Like in the Facebook group, you could say, all right, guys, I spent a morning researching this industry. I think I know what my next steps are. I've narrowed it down to these three. And then like give it to us short, and then we can respond and help. But I'm just wanting to push like you said, you explained it perfectly. This idea of tactics, like this is not actually tactics. You're going to chat with ChatGPT all day long and make $0 if you're not careful. And when I was in college, it was like my apartment was never cleaner than during finals, right? Because I didn't want to do the work. And so this, you can see that this has potential to be like that. Like, oh, I need to research more. I don't know enough. Like at some point, you got to tell it to stop and then do that thing that's going to get a client, or do that thing that's going to grow that next service line, or whatever.
Exactly. ChatGPT will always be your assistant. It can never replace what you do for your business, right? And the day-to-day. It will streamline what you can do though. It will like empower you if you start using it and learning about the different personalities of the different models, right? But it will never be able to decide for you like what's the next tactical action that you need to do, right? It will just help you decide, right? But in order for it to help you decide, you have to engage with it and treat it more like a human than a bot. Honestly, it's at the point where it's getting to that point. So this is basically your team, right? Treat this as your research team. They're not the expert in the room, right? Even though it confidently tries to be, you are the expert at the end of the day. But you can use it as your team and your assistant on that end.
So those of y'all listening live, if you've got any questions for Josh, you can start typing them in the chat now. I just kind of want to recap. So we've actually just talked about two tools, ChatGPT, although it has multiple sub levels, and that alone is going to be useful to me because I am a paying user, and I want to start. I did not know that. I did not know that when to use the 4, the mini, the 3, and we talked about Claude, which is more research based. Is that right?
I use it only for this project's feature because okay. I have a bunch of stuff, and for example, I use it for like product too, right? It's basically allows me. It's a workspace for me, really, and I use it if I needed to talk to like the industry, for example. You
can't do that inside ChatGPT chats.
Not yet. It's a little bit weird. They're a little bit weird about it. For now, you technically have projects in here, right? Yeah. You can technically do it, but it's not as powerful. For example, it doesn't have all the models in here. It doesn't have the reasoning models in here, right? So it's not as built out. I suspect they will eventually build this out, and then I'll just switch everything over. But right now, I use Claude for some of those. Like if I have like 20 industry reports, I'll use Claude for that. Otherwise, ChatGPT is like 90% of my daily driver.
I was going to say, so as someone who I'm always like, I worried about subscribing to too many things. If I am wanting to just get better, is the truth is I'll get so much mileage just out of one. Should I just don't worry about trying to play with all of them if you're not like an AI head, like an AI lover, right? Like we should just get good with one tool and not be distracted by others. Yes. I don't know. That's what I'm feeling.
I would recommend that. Yes, I would recommend ChatGPT just to get things started. But what you'll find eventually, if you start really using it, you'll find that ChatGPT is good for overall. It's good for certain things, and other tools are good for other stuff on that end.
So, I guess we'll just kind of start to wrap up with like any other things we need to be looking for going forward. Like what's like the next thing? Like if we did this next year, can you think about what you're going to be talking about? And so we can kind of have like, there's not a lot of tactical here. Is it going to start getting more tactical? Are we going to start using it for accounting? Or is this more of our intern helper friend, but not really doing the work yet?
Yeah. So regarding the tools in the accounting space, so this ChatGPT will always remain sort of your helper for a long time, right? And all the at least of the accounting tools I've seen in the space that is using AI in some form or fashion right now, it's going to be a while before they can really take over more and more of the workflow for accounting, especially because a lot of them are not necessarily building for the firm or the professional. Actually, a lot of them are just building for the business, which in our opinion, for our start, it's very unfortunate. A lot of them are building for the business and the business owner. They're not building for like the firm and the professional and their practice, right? So there's a huge delineation right now for that, right? I think eventually it will, trickle over, but because of that nature of it, you start to not see that yet. There are definitely some tools out there, like, that are exclusively building for the firms. Obviously, we're one of them, right? But there's just not a lot out there yet for that to happen. But in a year, I definitely, for sure, because every 3 to 6 months, the price is getting down, right? The models are getting better, right? Eventually, it will come, to head. But it just depends on like how fast technology does and how people are using it, right? We're in a weird time right now because all this stuff is coming out and changing a lot of different things.
Right. It's like I said, once you learn something, it's like it changes. So he mentioned his tool, y'all. His tool is legix.ai. That's the website, legix.ai. Do you think we're done with the demo, Josh? Should I take this off?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we can, yeah.
I'll remove this and I'll make sure that we get our little logo back up here for you. He's building a keyboard first accounting tool, right? Yeah. Am I saying it right?
Yeah. 100%. We just believe in 0 buttons. That's our whole thing, right? Where it's like we realize that a lot of the accounting slowdowns is because you're just clicking so many buttons in QuickBooks, for example, right? So we just built one that just not clicking. We just built one that overlays over QuickBooks, and you can go as fast as you want, right, with the keyboard, right, on that.
So y'all pay attention to that up and coming tech. And he asked that the best place to hang out with him is on LinkedIn. So the Legix link and his LinkedIn profile will be below. He's doing cool things, definitely something to watch. And just thanks for being so generous with your time today, coming and teaching kind of a, I don't know, I consider myself like a tweener. Like I want to run a good firm. And I think that means that I know I have to pay attention to this. I also know that it doesn't mean I have to jump every time AI raises its hand. And I think both of those are like traps. My nature is going to be the non-tech lover one. My nature is going to be the person who's like more scared and skeptical. Some people, your nature might be AI this, AI that, and it's going to be like half-baked, broken, it'll make your firm worse. And so I just want to be wise and use it to run a firm well. And I think that's where the human's going to come in. That's where my brain's going to really shine. Am I going to run a good firm because I'm going to pay attention to when and where and how much to spend on tools like this. And right now I am paying for ChatGPT. It does help. It has helped me make my first hire. I didn't know anything about that, so I talked with it a lot back in the fall. Did all the things that the job description. I had to write a job description for me after just like brain dumping. Like, this is what I kind of want someone to do for me. Yeah. And we'll see. I keep thinking about. I wonder how many of my clients are struggling with some of this too, and almost just like sharing my journey, like, and letting as content. Like, hey, clients, guess what I did today? Yes. Or, hey, clients, you know what? You asked me about if your expenses are too high. Well, let's ask the AI. Yeah, we can go fetch industry reports, and probably absolutely. Most people aren't going to know all these things that it can do because they're out there working. They're out there actually going and making the dollar bill, right? And so you can bring this to them as you're using it. Whenever you learn something, just be like, hey, look what I learned. Here's your industry reports, Miss Hair Salon Lady.
Yeah, 100%. What's interesting about a lot of people still use ChatGPT because they're used to Google, right? They search Google and they're asking these one-off questions, to Google, and then so when they get ChatGPT, they do something very, very similar, right? But one of the hardest part about using AI, right? It's not the tools. It's really just the mental habit of realizing that anything you used to be able to ask like a person, right? Or that you wouldn't have been able to ask a person because you would have had to pay them like $20 an hour or some obscene amount just for like a couple questions, or a guru like $150 an hour to answer some XYZ question, right? So those have been sort of, people don't realize they can do that. But when you start realizing that all those questions can be asked to the chatbot, right, or the ChatGPT, you start to realize the potential of it, and it can just do work for you, all that kind of stuff, right? So it's really just a mental switch, right? That's why I say, like, don't worry about the tools out there. Just, every question you have in your head, get into the habit of just opening up your phone, type that question in, and engaging with it.
You can actually talk the question.
You can, yes, you can. Yes,
I was going to say, I was going to bring mine up in the mornings. I walk super early in the mornings by myself.
I do that too. Yep.
And I just will like, hey, I want to start adding labels in Google Contacts. I want to be able to, kind of segment my clients.
Yep.
Can you talk to me about that's literally one of my most recent conversations. And it's just kind of like, hey, good morning. Yeah, okay, let's talk about labels. 100%. That's an interesting project. And it's kind of friendly and cheery. Yeah. And
it won't judge you for speaking. Like, you don't have to articulate well. You could speak like a caveman. It will still pick up. It's still very happy, right? And yeah, like that's what I do too. Actually, every morning I'll take my AirPods and I'll go for a walk and I'll say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. I'm working through these problems. What's your point of view? Can you give me a different perspective that what am I missing? Right? All those different things.
I really appreciate you being here. We're going to wrap up. I'm going to get the last word though. Okay. Normally I would let my guests get the last word, but I'm going to say, I'm a believer. I think I've shared sentiments like this. I think we need to be careful about like our souls and our spirits too. Like, this is not your friend. This is not the person, the phone is not going to rescue you when you have the cancer diagnosis or the whatever, or when Josh is like struggling because he didn't get the funding round he was supposed to. So like, don't forget real life friendships, y'all, too. Like, we need to have, like, we're embodied people. We need to have people we can hug and touch and go on a walk with, so as I'm walking by myself, talking to my AI, am I also like making sure, like, when I'm visiting my mom, I say, hey, Mom, let's go for a walk. Or when I'm, when I see my neighbor outside, I'm actually going across the street because I haven't forgotten how to talk to people. So I just worry about that as like our society is developing and our kids are growing. Like, don't forget to like, well, I think you said it well. Use the AI to get to where you've kind of done some thinking, and then go ask that person, go ask that mentor, go ask the person. Like, Josh is not going to make it if his only resource is the AI tool. He's going to have, and I know you're doing this, you're going to have to find other founders. You're going to have a business partner. You're going to, all these things, right? And you're going to talk to customers. If you forget how to talk to customers because you just AI'd the whole thing, you won't be ready to fight when you need to fight, right? You won't be able to go to battle because you've forgotten those skills. So I don't know. Those are my AI thoughts. It's a weird time we're living in.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Yeah, no, AI definitely does have skin in your game, so like it doesn't have that.
Yeah. This has been amazing. We'll do this again. I want to learn more about Legix as y'all are continuing to go to market. And I do think it would be an interesting exercise, like maybe every May, we're like, so what's new in the last year?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Because we'll feel like dummies if we're not, like, if you go on vacation 1 week, you've like missed the latest development. It's crazy. Okay. Adios all. Josh, I appreciate you. We'll be back here on the Bookkeeping Side Hustle channel. As always, I do streams every 2 weeks, but adios for now. Bye, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.